I am delighted to introduce our speaker today, Mollie Hope. And Mollie has got a very unique business model. She owns a physical therapy business, but it's a little different than the standard physical therapy business you might have heard about. So I'm going to let her tell us about it. Mollie, take it away.
All right, so I am very happy to be here with you all this morning. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. Before I start talking about my practice, I just want to give a little shout out to SCC because SCC was actually very instrumental in my path towards becoming a physical therapist. I decided to become a PT and go to grad school very late in my undergraduate career. I was a dance major to start out with, so when I decided my senior year of college to go to PT school, I had about 2 years of science classes that I needed to take to achieve that dream. I'm originally from California. I moved to Lincoln after graduating to be with my boyfriend, now husband, and SCC gave me the opportunity to take all of my science prerequisites in a super efficient and cost-effective way. So thank you, SCC. My chemistry instructor, Alan Earhart, wrote me one of my letters of recommendation, so shout out to him too. Anyway, so like Steve said, I own Hope First Physical Therapy and Wellness, which is the first and only fully mobile physical therapy practice in Lincoln. There are a few other clinicians I've been talking with and mentoring a little bit, so we may see a few pop up next year maybe, but for right now I'm the only one. And we primarily work with people with neurologic conditions, dizziness and chronic pain, and our older adult population, making house calls so that we can serve them. Absolutely love what I do. Today, I'm going to be chatting a little bit about how Hope First came to be, how I really used understanding what my personal values are as a person and a clinician, and then also understanding what my value is as a person and a clinician to forge my path of going out on my own. And then I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the tremendous benefits of the mobile business model for anyone in the service industry. Because even though I started out as a mobile practice, and that has been my vision all along, it's been tremendously helpful for me during the pandemic being mobile. So I'll chat a little bit about that. Unlike probably many of you in this group and people who will be watching later, I actually never ever wanted to own my own business. I call myself a reluctant entrepreneur. I actually have a very distinct memory of when I started physical therapy school, talking to my aunt who is a psychiatrist and has her own private practice. And she was so excited for me that I was going to physical therapy school. And she said, Mollie, do you want to own your own clinic, own practice someday? And I said, Aunt Barbara, heck no. There is no chance that I want to go through the hassle of doing that. My heart is being a clinician, not being a business owner. Absolutely no way. And 8 years later, here I am running my own practice. But really what led me to this point of owning my own practice and absolutely loving what I'm doing and being happy with that decision is really being able to understand my values. And I think that's why I was so reluctant, and maybe reluctant isn't even a strong enough word, resistant to even the idea of owning my own practice when I was first starting school, was that I couldn't see how my values aligned with being a business owner. So fast forward a little bit, I graduated from PT school. I got a fantastic job at our wonderful rehabilitation hospital here in town. And I worked there for 4 years. My passion, first and foremost, is being a clinician. It's not entrepreneurship. It's not being a business owner. It's not being in management. It's taking care of patients. That's where my heart lies and where I'm the happiest. But I found myself, even though I loved what I was doing, I had amazing colleagues, a super supportive supervisory staff, like all things considered, it was really an ideal job, except for just the truth of working in healthcare in modern times, which is that, you know, insurance kind of makes the rules. You have to see patients back to back to back to back to be able to have a successful operation. And as an introvert, by the time I was entering year 4 of practice, seeing 12 to 14 patients a day, every single day, was just super draining for me. And I was finding that even though I loved what I was doing and I loved the people I was caring for, and for the most part, I loved the space I was in, I didn't have any energy for anything else by the end of my workday. And that was kind of a sad way to live. I went to work, I gave 100% of what I had into my job, and then I came home and there was really no energy left for anything else. So I started thinking I needed a change, but I wasn't sure what that could be, because obviously going out on my own was like not in the cards, not something that I was even thinking about. I started thinking, oh, maybe I should think about teaching a little bit or adding some other things just to add some variety into my life. But at the same time, kind of serendipitously, I was gifted some patients on my caseload who started telling me that they were having difficulty with access to the clinic space, or were otherwise having difficulty with getting care in the way that they were expected to receive care. So I had a patient with very severe chronic pain who told me, you know, riding in the car was one of her biggest pain triggers. So having to drive to the clinic every time for her appointments to see me was really awful for her. And we had a hard time kind of overcoming that increase in her pain just to come into the clinic to hopefully get some relief. I started having patients who were doing super well in the clinic, but then would confide in me that they just really wished that I could go home with them for a session, because their stairs, their backyard landscaping, their curbs, whatever it was, their real life didn't match up to what we were doing in the clinic. So even though they were doing awesome with everything I threw at them in that, you know, kind of isolated clinic space, it just wasn't translating into their real life at home. And it was really frustrating. And so here I was at this crossroads, feeling ready for a change. And then I had all of these patients starting to tell me, oh man, if only you could come to my house, or someone could come with me to the grocery store, or whatever it was, just being out in real life with them. I thought, oh, wouldn't that be a great idea if someone made a physical therapy clinic that went to people? And I kind of left it at that for a little while, because again, I wasn't in the mindset to start my own practice. But the idea started creeping back in, and then it started creeping back in more. And eventually I just couldn't let go of this idea. I thought, this is an amazing opportunity. I think someone needs to do this in Lincoln. And again, I wasn't thinking it would be for me, because I had zero business knowledge, zero business experience, but I decided I really wanted this business model, this practice model, to be available to people in Lincoln. And I started talking with my husband about it. And I said, well, I don't know. Can I really expect someone else to do it? Maybe I should do it, but I don't know anything about business. I don't even know if this is a thing that like is even real. Like, does this even exist? And then kind of that light bulb moment came. I went to a continuing education course that was led by a Canadian physiotherapist who owns a mobile physical therapy practice. And I saw that and I said, oh my gosh, this is real life. Someone is actually doing this, someone in the flesh who I can talk to. And that was my turning point. And I made the decision that I was going to do this. But I knew that if I were going to take the leap and create a practice and leave it and leave my job, I couldn't just recreate what I was doing, right? Because then I would just be transferring all those stressors and all of those things that were not ideal for me as a clinician into something with all the additional stress of being an entrepreneur. So I had to dig very deeply and really think about what I valued as a clinician and what I would need my business to look like. And so for the students listening, anyone else, even if you're already operating your business, I think it can be such a beneficial exercise to really think about what you want your life to look like. If you are starting a business, growing your business, thinking about changing your business, or even just in life, because I knew that I didn't want that same type of high intensity patient care schedule where I just had nothing left for anything else in life. I realized that work-life balance is an essential value for me. Unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, again, because I never came from that entrepreneurial headspace, I don't believe in working myself to death. I don't really believe in the hustle culture and just go, 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 go. I think there's so much more to life than work, even though I love what I do. The things outside of work are just as important or even more important to me than actual work. So I knew that I had to build a practice that would support that essential value for me, something that would give me much more balance. And then I also knew I needed to create a practice model where I could give 100% to each and every one of my patients every single day when I was seeing them. That my first patient of the day and my last patient of the day got that same incredibly high quality of care, that I wasn't tired and burned out by the end of the day. So I decided, well, I need to see fewer people in a day. Naturally, I would be anyway. With the mobile model, when you're going to people's homes, there's drive time in between. So you literally can't see people back to back unless they're all in the same neighborhood. But I decided I really wanted to pare down. So I was seeing, 12 to 14 appointments a day in my job. And I decided the maximum number of people I wanted to see was 4 in a day. So when I was sitting down and really thinking about my values, I said, how many people can I see, including drive time, and be able to give them as much time as they need? So typically I'll see patients for about an hour at a time, but sometimes there are those days where we just need to sit and talk for an extra 30 minutes, or they need a shoulder to cry on, or they have lots of questions and I need to be there for 2 hours. I wanted to make sure that I had that space available and I wasn't rushing in between appointments so that I could really give my patients as much time as I needed. That was my ideal model. So I decided, okay, 4 people a day. What else do I need to do to make that a reality? Well, like one of your 2021 speakers, I determined that in order to operate this way, I couldn't take commercial insurance. There's just literally no way to operate in that insurance-based model that allows you to provide that level of care. So I made the tough choice that not only was I going to bring an entirely new practice model to Lincoln, I was also going to add that extra obstacle that I wasn't going to take commercial insurance. So I do take Medicare because legally physical therapists can't enter private contracts with Medicare beneficiaries. So that decision was made for me because I love working with that age group. So I do take Medicare, but I decided that I was going to be direct pay for everyone else because that would allow me to give patients the care that they really needed and not be dictated by arbitrary insurance limitations. So I had this idea. I sat down and really thought about what I wanted life to look like. And here it was. I was super excited about it. And then I told my friends and my family and my colleagues, now, who here has ever had a really, really great idea and you're so excited about it and you tell people and they're like, oh, that's such a cool idea, but I don't know, I really don't think that's gonna work, right? Or that's such an amazing idea. I really support you going for it, but maybe you should think about like trying this out on the side for a little bit and seeing if it's really feasible before you jump in. That's the majority of the feedback that I got. I was lucky my husband was amazingly supportive. He said, Molly, you do whatever you want. You're going to be successful. Go for it. And that feedback I got, I know, was from a place of love. It was people who were concerned about me not being successful, but person after person I talked to said, wow, I think that's such a great idea for a physical therapy practice, but you're not going to take commercial insurance, and are people going to feel weird about you going to their house? I think you should probably try to build this up as a little bit of a side gig before you jump all in. But this is where knowing my values, and then also knowing my value as a clinician and the value of my idea came into play. In terms of my values, I knew that personally, I could not continue a full-time job and try to develop and grow a business at the same time, because one of the driving forces of starting my own practice was having that increased time to explore my personal interests, have the energy to spend time with friends and family. And so I knew that adding essentially another job on top of a full-time job just wasn't going to cut it. And then I knew my value. I knew that this was an amazing idea. I knew that there was a need for it. I had patients telling me there was a need for it. And how could there not be a need for it? There's this huge gap in our healthcare system where people get discharged from the hospital. I'm going to get a little technical here, so apologies. But there's a service called home health care where people oftentimes when they get discharged from the hospital, but not always, have a hard time getting outpatient services, so they can receive rehabilitative therapies, nursing visits, medical visits under a home health agency. But in order to be eligible for those services, you have to be certified as homebound by a physician, because you kind of literally can't leave your home because you're too medically fragile or have mobility difficulties that limit that. There's this huge gap for people who struggle to get out because of disability or transportation issues or anxiety or any reason. They struggle to get out, but they don't qualify for those home health services. So I knew there was this huge need. People who were just falling through the cracks and either not getting the care that they needed, or people who were trying really hard to get the care that they needed and it just wasn't fitting correctly for them. So I told those people, I said, you know what, I appreciate that you're concerned about me, but I know this is an amazing idea. And it wasn't coming from a place of, cockiness or overconfidence. I just really knew that this was a great idea and it was going to serve a lot of people. So I did what maybe people shouldn't do, I guess. I resigned from my job. I just quit and started my practice. So maybe not the best advice depending on where you are in life, but I'd financially prepared for this. So I decided very early on in 2019 that I was going to do this. And I didn't actually open my doors until August of 2019. So I had some time to financially prepare and mentally prepare and emotionally prepare for all of this. So I resigned from my job that I otherwise really loved and jumped in full force, which for me personally was the right decision. It's not the right choice for everyone, but if you're able to, it's amazing to be able to do that, because then you can really give 100% of yourself to what you're doing. So if you have the ability and the privilege to be able to leave your job and maybe not have a lot of income for a little while, for me, it was the best way to go about things. So then I opened my doors and I really had to dig into what I knew was my value as a clinician, because I now had to explain to people what a mobile physical therapy practice was. No, it wasn't home health services. No, it's not regular outpatient services. There was a lot of education involved and getting people to understand how that worked, that you don't need all that fancy equipment that a clinic has. I can bring whatever we need to get you to the point you want to be in your mobility and your independence in the trunk of my car. And that working without equipment can actually be even more beneficial, because Are you going to have thousands of dollars of equipment in your house once you discharge from physical therapy? Probably not, right? You're going to have the things you have at your house. So if we can incorporate that into your rehab, it's going to make everything much more functional and realistic in real life for you. Then came that barrier of not taking insurance. I initially got, I wouldn't say a lot, but I definitely got some pushback about that. And that's where knowing that what I provided was special and different, and being confident with that, so that I could convince people that what I had to offer was worth them separating from their hard-earned dollars. So of course, we all know in business that you have to convince people to buy what you're selling, whether that's a service or a product, because money isn't just money, right? It's people's time and effort that they put in to earn that money. And so they have to see that what you offer is valuable enough for them to part with that. And I think it can be hard as a, you know, even though I'd been a therapist for 5 years, that's still kind of relatively new in the scheme of being a practicing clinician. And being a young woman, you know, feeling confident enough that people should pay out of pocket for services that they otherwise would have covered. So I now have a fantastic online group of almost 400 women who want to be direct pay physical therapy providers. And I do a lot of mentorship with them. And we just talk about how important it is to understand that what you have to offer is worth money, even if people balk at it. And then the longer I practiced and the more that people got to experience the level of care I provided and how I worked, the less and less resistance I got. And now I can't remember the last time that someone actually even questioned paying out of pocket for my services, because they've heard through word of mouth, or they've met with me and they know that what we provide is different, because not only do we come to people and it's super great and convenient and, you know, takes that stress of having to go to a clinic for care, but because we're so small and I only see a max of 4 people a day, I give my patients the opportunity to contact me whenever they want. They can text me, they can call me, they can email me if they have questions. Evenings, weekends, I am there for them. I am their care provider. I'm not just someone who sees them when they need to be seen. So if they have questions or concerns, I had a family I was working with over the summer who we were waiting on some medical equipment, and it had been delivered kind of late in the evening, and this patient was unable to get out of a chair or out of a bed by herself, and her mom was her caregiver, and she really struggled with helping her with those things. So we were getting everything set up to have hired caregivers and things like that, but mom called me at 5 p.m. and said, oh, we got, you know, the new bed delivered, and we would really like to have the patient in that so she can be more comfortable. Is there any way that you could come over and help us get her set up? And because of the way I operate, I was able to do that. It was 5 p.m. I was able to drive over and help her get set up and leave. Where any other kind of practice, they say, well, we have to wait until our next appointment to do that. Or let me see if I can squeeze you in the next day. So it's been so rewarding for me as a clinician to really be able to operate in a way that makes me feel so good about what I'm doing and be able to care for people the way that I want to. And because I chose a business model that reflected my values and what is important for me, I can operate that way. And now I have time in my day. I can come home and play with my dog. My documentation doesn't take very long. I have so much more time in my day to be happy and enjoy things, and that reflects in my work. And I think it's just this continuous circle, this feedback loop, that my work gets better because I'm a happier person and a happier clinician, and my business gets better because of that. And so now, even though I had all that initial pushback, and my original business plan was to be just a solo provider business, even though I'm just over a year old, I'm actually so busy that I had to get another therapist to help me, even though that was never in my plan. And so I think when you can really put your heart into your business and have it operate in a way that reflects what you want, you will have probably more success than you even imagined. So with that, I'm going to pivot briefly and just talk about the benefits of the mobile model, because it has been a tremendous asset to me as a business owner, especially through the pandemic. So if anyone is thinking about starting a business, especially in a service-oriented industry, it's an amazing way to get started, and I highly, highly recommend it. Whether you're a healthcare provider, legal services, hair, nails, whatever it is, if you provide a client-facing service type business, starting mobile is such a low risk way of getting started. I think it can be a really amazing way to dip your toes into owning your own business. So when I started, because I didn't need a building, I didn't need a ton of equipment, just some general safety things, ways to take vital signs and maintain safety with my patients, and then a few weights and things like that in my car, I was able to start my business without taking any loans, zero debt. I could just jump right in. And all of you business owners are going to smile and maybe laugh when I say this. Not including paying myself, my business expenses when I first started were under $200 a month. Okay, so when I started, I could afford to not be busy. I could afford to have that slow growth because my expenses were so low, and it was such a low risk way for me to start. Now, obviously, I'm busier. I have a much bigger infrastructure. My expenses are much higher than $200 a month now, but it was such a great way for me to start as a new business owner. And now it's turned into, a surprise blessing with COVID, because people don't want to go out to busy clinics, hospitals. They don't want to go out anywhere, right? And because I primarily work with people who are vulnerable, they have chronic health conditions, they're especially nervous about going to clinics or hospitals for care. And I think this is going to continue well beyond when the pandemic is over, because what's more convenient than having someone come to you? You don't need to schlep somewhere when the weather is bad. You don't want to go out and go to an appointment or go get a service. I think that the mobile business model is just going to continue to increase in demand. And I think it's such an awesome way to operate, because you get to go see people where they're the most comfortable. They are ready for you. There's none of that, kind of nervousness that can come from going to an appointment. And so if anyone is thinking about starting a new business and you operate in a capacity that can be mobile, I think it's such a tremendous way to start, because it can be extremely low cost to start depending on what your business or your service is. And it's such a wonderful way to serve people who otherwise have difficulty with access, whether that again is due to disability or transportation issues or things like that. It can be a way to reach people who you would otherwise never be able to reach, or that even if you do reach them, it's difficult for them to come to you. So I think it's a fantastic model. I feel very lucky that I chose it. I chose it not for pandemic reasons, obviously, because I started well before this happened. But my business has grown tremendously during the pandemic. I feel very lucky that I am, one of those business owners that has not suffered during COVID. And in fact, I've grown during COVID because of that. But, being mobile is awesome. there's literally no downside other than the fact that I guess you have to sit in the car and it can limit, how many clients you can serve. But if you don't mind driving, it's a fantastic way to serve people, and is kind of a way to make your business a little bit pandemic proof, if anything can be pandemic proof. And I think as a way to really serve your community, because there are so many people that we don't think about who kind of fall through the cracks because they can't access things for whatever reason. So that's my story. That's Hope First Physical Therapy. Yes, Doug.
Well, Mollie, thank you so much. I almost laughed when you indicated that we always tell people that want to start a business, you need to identify a pain to solve. And you literally identified some pain, and it made so much sense that some people were probably experiencing more pain crawling in and out of their cars to come see you, to the point where it was almost not worth coming to see you. So you literally identified a pain point that people were having, and then you're building a business around solving that pain. So this is a great lesson for a lot of people. Any questions? Let's open it up we have time for a couple of questions. So does anybody have any questions for Mollie?
I do. First of all, thank you for what you do. This is wonderful. This is one of the, we've had a lot of good speakers, but this is amazing.
Thank you so much.
I come from a long-term care background a million years ago. So my question is this: obviously from a pay standpoint, payer source standpoint, private pay is desirable. And if I heard you correctly, you accept Medicare. How do you handle, and your passion being the clinical side, how do you handle the MDS, the rug levels, the reimbursement, the submittals, all that lovely fun stuff with Medicare? Do you have somebody to do that? Do you outsource it? Do you do it yourself?
So actually I do it all myself. So the nice thing is that because I'm mobile, I actually operate under Medicare as an outpatient provider. So I don't have any of those things that I need to deal with. So in outpatient, we don't have to deal with rug. We don't need to deal with any of those things. It's just outpatient billing, which is surprisingly simple once you learn it. So I can do it myself, and it takes maybe less than an hour a week.
Good for you.
So yeah, so it's really nice that Medicare pays for outpatient services in the home in the exact same way that they would pay for an outpatient clinic visit. And it's nice for me because I don't need to deal with all of those regulations, like a home health or like skilled nursing has around Medicare. So it's honestly pretty simple on my end.
Perfect. I put my contact to your chat. I'd love to talk to you about some business. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mollie?
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, excellent presentation, Mollie. Just love it. Have you had any resistance in being compliant with your patients with the COVID compliant? Have you had their full cooperation?
Oh, yeah. You mean like in terms of, mask wearing, things like that? No, I've been very lucky. I haven't had any issues with that. I think a lot of that stems from the fact that 99% of the people that I work with are in that high risk category for COVID. They have chronic health conditions, they're older. They seek me out because they're concerned about exposure. So I've been really lucky that I've had zero resistance in terms of being safe, and people are really appreciative that someone can come to them. And I've been lucky too. The nice thing is, seeing fewer patients. I don't have to use up as much PPE because I'm only seeing 4 people a day versus, 14. So as a provider, my sources of PPE have, been stable, and I've been able to do that. So from that aspect, it's been pretty seamless for me.
Thank you.
Great question.
Okay,
I'd
we would
like to,
we would have time
thank
for
real
one
quick.
last question.
Steve, I just wanted to thank Mollie real quickly. She's done a really great job of training our caregivers on range of motion. And I appreciate that so much because not only does she obviously care for her own clients, but cared enough for community partners to kind of have a domino effect where her training went out to all of our caregivers that are working with clients. And Mollie, I know you put a lot of time into that training. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Carla. I am appreciative of you and everything you do and our partnership together.
All right, that's awesome. And Mollie, we need to bring things to a conclusion now, but I do want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to share with us. And I'm kind of in the mode where I'm always looking for money-making opportunities. And one thing you mentioned that piqued my interest a bit was that you have a group of 400 people that you work with that want to do something similar to you, and you pass along tips. Have you ever thought about creating a online class for that and monetizing it, or perhaps franchising your idea and selling it around the country?
So that's a great question. And I have thought about it, but in terms of my group, actually, I actively decided to make it a non-money-making group on purpose. There are a lot of PTs in the online space and lots of online courses across, every kind of business related thing. So I actually wanted to create a space where people felt like they could answer questions and support each other without having sales pitches thrown at them. So I think I could absolutely make money off of this group because I provide a lot of value, but I actually made the conscious decision that I didn't want to do that, to make it a sales-free group. Perhaps down the line if I change my mind, or just depending on how much effort I end up putting into it. But I think that's absolutely not an easy way, but if you have something valuable and can present your information online, that's a great way that you can connect with people. Yep. And make money in a way where, if you make a course, that initial work is done and it can be evergreen for you and you can continue to get income that way. So that's a great question. I want to take just 1 minute, something I forgot to say during my presentation that I think is very important to share with the world that many people don't know. You do not need a physician referral to see a physical therapist in the state of Nebraska. You can just go straight to your PT. So patients don't need to go visit a physician before they come see us. They can just call us up and get on the schedule.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I would like to thank everybody who attended our coffee today. Thank you so much for your support and attendance. We're going to again be taking a break for the holidays now, but our coffees will resume on January 14th. And we have Lynette Sorrentino with Chaos to Boss joining us that day. And we've got a great slate of speakers in January and February. So we look forward to seeing you all after the turn of the new year. And I hope that you will all have a great holiday season and stay safe and stay well. Thank you much.